William McCrea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the outset, on behalf of my right honourable and honourable friends, can I unreservedly condemn those who have been engaged in violence on our streets and assure those injured or affected by such violence, including the police, of our support. I also unreservedly condemn any threat against the honourable member for East Belfast and her colleagues. I certainly know what that's like, because the IRA tried to not only attack my property but tried to assassinate myself and my complete family because I wanted to hold to the Union flag. However, would the Secretary of State agree with me that it is not right to demonise those who wish to peacefully protest against a decision to remove the Union flag from Belfast City Council? That flag is the very core of the Unionist identity, and many people of Northern Ireland died in order to keep it aloft in our province. So therefore, can the Secretary of State assure me that the PSNI have every resource that they need to maintain, on the one hand, law and order, and to facilitate peaceful protest?
I very much welcome the member for South Antrim in his forthright condemnation of what's gone on, and clearly he has a special perspective on this, having himself been a victim of such terrible threats in the past. It is, of course, a fundamental part of our democracy that people have the right to protest peacefully. That cannot, of course, justify the terrible scenes that we've seen on our television screens over the last week.
Mr. Paisley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I'm reading the Secretary of State correctly, I agree that it's completely insensitive and foolish for people to think that they can name play parks after murderers and terrorists, and remove the national flag from Northern Ireland and reduce its flying, and think that there's going to be no consequence whatsoever. Sadly, we have seen that identity and the struggle of identity causes consequence. Very sad, and I condemn the consequence of violence that has occurred. But will the Secretary of State do this? And giving meaning to the words in her statement, that nobody can be in any doubt about the government's support for the Union and its flag, will she go to Northern Ireland at her earliest convenience and reiterate again and again that view that Ulster's Britishness is not diminished whatsoever?
As I've said, I've repeated on many occasions this government's support for the Union and this government's support for Northern Ireland's place within the Union. The question of Northern Ireland's future is settled on the principles of the Belfast Agreement. It will only ever be decided by democracy and by consent. And when it comes to the politics of identity, I think it's very important that, with the decisions taken, whether it's on flags or whether it's on other issues, that the very different traditions in Northern Ireland, their different perspectives and their different perceptions about their own identities are taken into account. But I will never be in doubt about my support for the Union or the UK government's support for the Union.
Jim Shannon.
I thank the Secretary of State for our statement here to the House today. The Alliance councillor in my constituency had her home attacked in the early hours of Saturday morning. I visited her to give her support, first of all, but also because she's a personal friend. I've worked with her on many constituency issues for the betterment of the whole of the community, and we're working together. She had her living room windows, her porch windows and her bedroom windows smashed in her home of 24 years that she's lived in. And what is and her car windows broken as well, and what can only be described as a cowardly and shameful attack. This single lady lives on her own, said to me it will cost some £5,000 for her windows to be fixed. She was of some concern how that was going to happen in a house as Christmas approaches. Can the Secretary of State assure us, this House, and assure us as MPs and as her MP, what steps that the Secretary of State can take to ensure that the £5,000 is made available for the replacement of her windows, and indeed for everyone else who has had cars burnt, windows smashed and houses damaged?
I thank the honourable member for Strangford for drawing the House's attention to yet another very sad case. I have to say I'm particularly concerned about the number of women who've been targeted as a result of these threats. Not just the Honourable Lady for Belfast East, but a number of her Alliance local councillor colleagues. And that, I think, is a course of a matter for very, very grave concern, particularly at a time when I think everyone says that we need to attract more women into politics. There can be few things that would provide more of a deterrent to entering politics than the idea that your front window is going to be smashed and you're going to be intimidated. As I've said, the PSNI are very focused on on protecting those who are subject to these threats. It's difficult for me to comment on individual cases, but I'm happy to discuss this one on a bilateral basis with the honourable member.